So I get comments like this all the time. Paul, you've clearly worked on media literacy for years and earned some qualifications on the topics from some of the nation's leading institutions in the field, but I don't like when media doesn't say what I want it to, so clearly it's left-wing and biased. And not to worry, I'm going to give you some pointers here on what to look out for to help you see which way your media leans. These are just a few simple tricks to watch out for that are used by media to push the bias onto you that you might not be aware of, like language and framing. Do they use some loaded words that make something sound good, like visionary or robust or decisive? Or do they use words that do the opposite, like reckless, scheming, or desperate to nudge how you should feel? Is the reporter a mind reader claiming to know a subject's internal motives without quoting them? The Prime Minister is panicking? Or does the headline match accurately what's in the body of the text, or is it sensationalized clickbait designed to provoke some kind of reaction? Look at sources and selection. Who gets a voice? Are both sides given equal weight, or is one side quoted with an expert while the opposing view is represented by a single unvetted social media comment? And also, what is it that they are missing out? What relevant background facts, numbers, or opposing arguments are completely missing from a story? And are the sources anonymous? Are key claims backed by verifiable entities or relying heavily on vague insiders to say what's going on? And don't forget presentation and context. There's a visual slant that could happen. Are the accompanying photos flattering or aggressive or taken out of context? Opinion versus fact is a big one. Is news reporting, or is this an opinion piece editorial trying to pass as an objective news report? And then there's spin. Are graphs visually distorted, or are minor statistical shifts within a margin of error presented as a massive surge? And then do the self-check reaction test. Did reading this make you feel immediate rage or instant confirmation? High emotional reactions are often a sign of manipulative media framing. And don't forget to try lateral reading. If you search for the core claim on a neutral search engine, do reputable independent sources confirm the exact same framing? These are just a few things that you can use to look and see exactly how our media frames things at the moment. And it's not going to be particularly pleasant for a few people out there who seem to think our media might be biased or left-leaning, if you know what it is that you're looking for. Now, there are some tools that you can find on election2026.co.nz around media framing, and I think it's the games section or the tool section. It'll be one of the two, probably the gaming section, if you want to learn a little bit more about this. And of course, you could always join me for Coffee and Context on Sunday mornings, where we go through this and we talk over one really big issue in particular around how media framing works. This week, we're going to be talking about paywall journalism and how having paywalls is a necessary evil in some respects, but has also changed the way that journalism works and can be used to dictate how people feel about elections. That's on Sunday morning. So yeah, I hope whoever it was that made that wonderful comment has learned something, and you guys have all picked up something as well to help you out along the way. Hello there, Kia ora podcast listeners. This one's a really simple, quick one, and it's kind of a rehash of lots of times I've done this before, but I do enjoy pointing out to people that this is how you can check media bias. And to be honest, there's something I never put in any of these things about the bias, or I do occasionally, and it's that our own personal bias is clearly going to have an influence on what we see bias as. And 9 times out of 10, when people comment on that, if they have an actual profile, and this person didn't, the person who actually left this comment, Dion P, no followers, no profile, like it reads like a bot account. So that's why I didn't. Actually, I did reply to it on TikTok where the comment came from with just a really open, honest, I would love to know what makes you think that. And I never got a response to it because it's probably a bot. But it is a great thing to use as a learning tool to teach people about how you can spot bias. But yes, our bias does absolutely have an impact on how we go about recognizing bias in media. Like it's probably the biggest single influence most times. But it was really fascinating going through finding clips and bits and pieces for this one, like seeing how Radio New Zealand actually did a lot of the good bad ones that I used at the beginning. Seeing how they frame things is always really fascinating. Radio New Zealand and the Herald are almost identical in how they uncritically platform stuff that comes from ACT in the framing that ACT uses, and from Curia in the framing that, or the Taxpayers Union, and use the framing that they use, which is absolutely amazing to sit down and watch because people don't seem to realise that that's what's going on. And I suppose when it comes to Radio New Zealand in particular, you wouldn't expect it. You'd expect there to be a little bit of balance, and there's not as much as people would like to think. I guess it is what it is. It's, hopefully if you tell people that it's there, that they pick up on it. But one of the things I've noticed today, actually while making this, seeing the media push a really specific virgin on fascism kind of talking point around the right of citizens to vote in this country. Because there was this poll that was done by Curia, so it should automatically be chucked in the bin and not given any credence whatsoever. But there was a poll done by them that said most New Zealanders don't want non-citizens to vote. And the way that whole thing has been framed is very much a New Zealand First talking point, which is very much framed as fascism for fascists. And everybody knows that except New Zealand First voters, apparently, who are like, it's just Winston being Winston. And the fact that Nazis like what he's saying, what a terrible coincidence, because Nazis would never do that. Anyway, I'm going to go step over to the right and tell people that I want them to break up the gentailers and buy back BNZ so they think that I'm normal and not talking about chemtrails and shit. It's a really clearly problematic framing to say that only citizens should be able to vote. Everything that this government has done around voting, and New Zealand First has been a driver of this, has been regressive, pulling people back, stopping them from voting, getting out there, and that kind of thing is really problematic when our media uses the same framing that they're framing. But that's something that I will go into, I think, in more detail next week, maybe even a little bit on coffee and context, but I'll do the slides up for those tomorrow, so join me on Sunday, I guess. This is just a filler. This is just a filler with stuff that if you've been around for a while, you've already heard. And if you haven't been around for a while, maybe you learn something from it. That's the aim. But I'm going to go and play some new Spider-Man game because I finally downloaded that last night because it was free with my PlayStation membership. And I figured I might as well use it while I still can. So I'm going to go do that. And then I will be back later tonight when I'm recording this to be on BHN to talk around Open Brief. I wanted to have a look at what they call breaking news, the kind of there's a fire, there's an emergency, that kind of stuff, because it's really interesting to see how our media covers it, and also there are differences in how left and right-leaning media cover emergencies. So I'll go into that tonight. Super fast, super easy. I'm going to leave you to it. Live long, prosper, be one with the force. Ka kite anō. Oh, that reminds me, I need to message the Armageddon people because Anson Mount, the captain of the Enterprise, Christopher Pike,